I can never explain what it is to people. Hello, fellow mortals, welcome back. Today I have a different background. It's much less interesting and aesthetically pleasing than my bookcase, but I bought a new chair for my desk and it is just so fucking comfortable that I have kind of been living in it since yesterday, so here we are. Today I want to talk about death cafes and what they are. Death Cafe is a group-directed discussion of death. There is no agenda, no objectives, and no themes. It is a discussion group, not grief support or group therapy. Death cafes are always offered on a not-for-profit basis. So I run a death cafe every month, but I do not make money from it. Death cafes are always offered in accessible, respectful, and confidential spaces. Death cafes have no intention of leading people to any conclusion, product, or course of action. And death cafes always offer refreshing drinks and or food, such as tea and cake. Death Cafe was started in 2012 by a guy named John Underwood in the UK. He sadly has since passed. John wanted to start a project that would get people more comfortable with talking about death. He himself was sick at the time. I believe he died from leukemia, and he wanted his family, friends, and himself to feel more comfortable talking about death. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I run my death cafe. So I'm very lucky that I get to use a space through an awesome holistic wellness center in a town nearby me. The center itself is so cozy. It's actually a historic Victorian mansion. I want to say it's from like 1890. So when you walk in this building, it just feels so homey and so cozy. And I get to use one of the rooms downstairs up front. It's kind of like an old parlor. There's a fireplace. I start each cafe introducing myself, and then we go around in a circle and everybody shares their name, a little bit about themselves and why they're here. So yes, I am the facilitator of this group, but I should be speaking the least out of everybody because again, Death Cafe is a group-led discussion. So in other words, I am not opening up with a prompt for the group or a question or a story. After we do our introductions, the floor is open. People can talk about anything they want. I've been running my Death Cafe for almost a year now. In February, it will be exactly a year. I could sit here all day telling you all the different subjects we have covered, all the different stories I have heard over the past year. The topic of the afterlife comes up a lot. People share what they believe happens after we die. We talk a lot about people we've lost. I've had a lot of people share near-death experiences. One guy was born with a heart condition and he was resuscitated twice in his life. I've had people tell me that they have seen a white light after they've died. I had one guy tell me that it wasn't white, but it was very gray and misty, almost like what he would imagine walking in a cloud to be like. Another guy got into a horrific car accident. The last thing he remembers thinking before he crashed into a wall was, damn, this is a shitty way to go at only 17. Another topic that comes up a lot is caregiving for elderly or terminally ill relatives. Everybody wants to share their story of caring for a parent or a spouse who had dementia. We talk about our feelings about death. Most people that come to my Death Cafe say that they are not afraid to die. What I hear most often is that people are afraid of getting sick and not being able to care for themselves. I do have some frequent flyers. There is an old man who has shown up to every one of my Death Cafes since it started. I have come to call him the librarian of my Death Cafe because he always brings interesting articles and other sorts of reading material to share with the group. Sometimes people do get emotional, people cry, but there's a lot of laughter too. There's silliness you wouldn't think in something that's called a death cafe, that we're going to be laughing and having fun, but we do, when we share funny stories about our loved ones that have passed. My most memorable death cafe yet has been this one time. It was me and 10 men. I had a group of just men, which is unusual. Mostly I have women that show up, but this time it was all guys and just me. They were part of a support group for men with autism. They were just such a cool group. We had a great conversation that day. We actually went over our hour-and-a-half limit. I think we were there like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. There were some pretty powerful stories that were shared that day. Anyway, guys, that's all I have time for today. I hope I was able to adequately explain what Death Cafe is and why it's so important. We need people to feel more comfortable talking about death. I've had many people come up to me after the cafe and say, thank you so much for doing this. I don't feel comfortable talking about this kind of stuff with my friends, my family, my spouse, whoever. That's just a really awesome thing to hear.